digital learning and computer science specialist. And here co-hosting with me is John, and I'll let him introduce himself before we get going.
Hello, I'm John Graham. I'm the elementary digital learning specialist at the Department of Ed. So this is going to be an exciting session because this is kind of the first one that we've done that's sort of a live help session is what we're calling it. So we'll see how it goes and see if this is the kind of support that some people would like. So we're looking forward to seeing how it goes today.
Awesome. So I see that the survey is not working for some people. I'm not sure why that is. So far, it looks like 55 of 74 people have chimed in. So I'll share that in a minute, just kind of giving people a chance to hopefully maybe find that or contribute if you haven't yet. I would also recommend, just so we can get a sense of who's here, if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself in the chat, give us an idea of where you're from and all of that kind of fun stuff, and we'll kind of get an idea of who's here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, I know we haven't gotten everyone. It looks like about 75% of people have answered. Let me try to relaunch it actually real quick and see. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, you guys. That totally reset the whole thing. If you want to just take a minute and fill out this survey now that we have everybody here, then hopefully we could get responses from more people. I did not realize that was going to clear the results if I said relaunch. I thought it was just going to send it back out to everyone. I'm sorry about that. And then we'll go ahead and talk about the results. You guys are fast. We're already at 56%. All right, well, it looks like we've got people connecting from all over the state, and that's exciting. We'd love to see the representation across the state. I feel sometimes like our Zoom meetings might actually reach more people because you could just connect from wherever you're at. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just end this so that we can look at what people have said and kind of talk a little bit about that real quick before we launch into asking about questions and things of that nature. So it looks like most of people are using Google Classroom right now. There's a few of us who aren't. And I have actually seen in the chat as well that it looks like there's some interest in both of these options, and that kind of is represented here too, where these are almost tied. And then this question was kind of just an idea for me to kind of be able to tailor what I talk about and show you, and kind of get an idea of where your questions are going to be coming from as we kind of move forward. So that's very helpful for me. I appreciate everyone contributing to it. And I'm going to just kind of start by opening the floor to anyone who wants to go ahead and ask like a general question. And then maybe that can move into some demonstrations of Google Classroom. So does anybody want to be brave and chime in with a question?
Not right now.
Can you start from the beginning? Like, how do you set it up? And that, I think that'll help me with more questions, because right now I don't know enough to ask questions.
Yeah, certainly. So, okay, all right, 1 second.
I need to know how to put a video in.
Okay. All right. So why don't we set up a brand new. Google Classroom and we will add a welcome video. 1 second. Going to share my screen. I have 2 screens, so if I lose you at all, please let me know. Sometimes I don't notice that I have gone to the other screen. So if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, let me know. I'll try to be descriptive. So this is just classroom.google.com. This is kind of one of the easiest ways to get into just the Google Classroom house, so to say. This is a class that I have set up in Google Classroom. So if I'm going to set up a new class, then I'm going to go, oh, I got to move my little video here. I'm going to go to create a class because I'm not joining an already existing class. I'm going to start a brand new one. And then I have that notification because this is not, my account isn't associated with a G Suite for Education account. So it's just kind of a self-standing account. So we're going to do English 101. Actually, I'll put that in as the subject and we'll do, I don't know, I'm not an English major, but we're going to do poetry, section 1. And we'll create it. The only thing in this section that is required is the class name. So if you just want to keep it basic, you can always just create the class name the way it is and you won't have to do anything else. So then it's going to launch us into our class, and it right off the bat tells you that here's your class code so that you can invite students to it or add other teachers or whoever you need to have in there. And then you can do all sorts of things to kind of, you know, you can select a theme for it. Right now it seems to have like a swimming type of theme, or maybe phys ed you could use that for. So you can kind of choose what your theme is. There's all sorts of different things. You can also upload your own custom image here. I have, let's see which one it is. Nope, not that one. Oh, it's the other one. I closed out of it. Hang on. So I have like a little Bitmoji classroom scene that I've been working on in here that I uploaded. And this is by far not an expert level. I'm brand new at Bitmoji, but I've been exploring it more. So I think that this is a great way to kind of make it look more friendly to your students, but that's a whole nother layer. So I would say you can get to that, but if you're not there right now, just add in, you know, some type of an image right here that is kind of related to whatever you're doing. So since this is a poetry class, we'll pick a somewhat related theme. And okay, so right here we have our stream. This is where you kind of would write an announcement you can do to all students. If I had students in here, it would let me select a few students or one student or whoever, so you can, you know, send something to just a specific student, or you can send an announcement out to your whole class. You can attach a Google Drive file or a URL. You can upload something from your computer or include a YouTube video. But this is where you're going to actually add things like assignments and materials and things of that nature is in this classwork tab. And so you're going to go into here. And if I was to say I want to put in a welcome video, I'm probably going to use a material because I'm not asking them a question. I'm not giving them a quiz. I'm just simply saying welcome to our course. And then I can add, which I had a really great one. Oh, there it was. I can't type today. I just used like a cute little, it was made with a it was made with the Powtoons tool, but this is just something that somebody else created. I was just using it as an example. And so you'd grab, I didn't explain that, but I grabbed the URL here, copied it, and then I'm going back over here and I'm gonna go into YouTube and then go to URL and do it this way. There's this video search option right here, and you can use this, but I have found in my experience that it limits the results that YouTube will actually pull. So I found it better to go to YouTube, search for your video, or even go to Google and search for a YouTube video, and then pull the URL directly from there instead of trying to use this video search right here. And so then you add it right there. And then I'm going to go over here, and I want this to post for all students because it is a welcome video. I don't have a topic right now because it's just maybe I'll create a topic of getting started. And then I can schedule to post this. I can save it as a draft, or I can post it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and post it right now. And then it says, welcome to our course. When somebody clicks on it, the video pops right up here and it'll play for them. So if you record a video for your students that you want to kind of show them, like, welcome to our course, this is how the course works, kind of give them an overview of what the course looks like so that they kind of have that first warm touch with you, and then they go and start exploring the classroom. And so that's definitely, there's a few other features, like you can connect a class drive folder, so you can have subfolders for students and things of that nature. Google Calendar, so that you can schedule assignments and students can see like your class will have its own calendar. So if you set up assignments and due dates, they can add that calendar to their calendar, and then they'll have, Poetry 101 test due, Friday, May 28th or whatever it is. So then there's the People tab, and this is where the teachers and students are. As you can see, since we just made this, there are no students, and I'm the only teacher. I can add teachers. You want to keep in mind the role that you want the person to have when you add them. Like if you are adding a support staff, and they may not necessarily be the teacher of the class, you still may want to have them as a teacher so that they can see other students' work and stuff. If you only have them as students, they will only see like their own work and any student work that is public, so like discussion posts and stuff where they're supposed to interact with each other. So depending on what role you want them to have is going to kind of have a lot to do with that. And then of course, we can't see anything in grades right now because it's a brand new course. So are there any questions about that whole process of kind of setting up a brand new Google Classroom?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you go into Google Classroom, I don't have the option to set up a classroom. I have the option to join your class first. Does that mean that I'm in student mode?
That is a really good question. I would think that, are you using a school account?
I am, but I mean, I'm an ed tech, so everything that I do is in teacher mode, but I was added to a Google Classroom a little while ago, and something happened and it didn't work out correctly. And ever since then, it says join your class first.
So, okay, that tells, yeah, you probably are in student mode. Hang on, I've got this right here. Let me go. Let's see if it'll stay. I might have to toggle my account real quick. I have a student account that I can actually show you. And let's find out right now. Okay, so I have the ability to create a class here, but that doesn't necessarily, I wasn't added to, like, do you have this page or do you just end up directly in a classroom when you?
No, when I go to mine, it's a circle with like a little dot head in the middle, and then up in the corner there's an arrow pointed to the plus sign, and it just says join your class first. Join your first class, sorry. And that's all it says.
And then when you click the plus, it doesn't have a create option.
Nope, it just says join class.
Oh, that is very odd. It sounds to me almost like they set your email account up to have student privileges, which might restrict it from allowing you to create a class, but I'm not really entirely certain about that.
Okay, so I can talk to the technology person about it.
That's definitely what I would recommend.
Okay.
John, do you have any insight on
I was
that?
just gonna say, yeah, a lot of times if your school has kind of a G Suite setup, different accounts will be set up in different buckets with different privileges given to them. So sometimes, and it just depends on how they choose to set it up. So you might just have to ask them, what access does my account have or not have? Because I was having this specific issue with Google Classroom.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions that come up?
I'm curious about the grades portion. It does not allow you to allow everybody to see the grades for a certain student, does it?
When you say everyone, do you mean students or do you mean like if you have teachers added?
I'm talking about other students. Okay.
Definitely not. I feel like that would be a fiasco really fast.
I kind of thought so, but I just wanted to double check because we hadn't gone over that and there weren't grades to show us.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good thing to keep in mind. No, grades are private. The only things in Google Classroom where students can see each other's work is if you have assignments set up that are shareable, or if you're doing like a Google discussion, because discussion posts are usually what they call public to the classroom. Like it's not public, but everyone in the classroom has access to it.
I have a question about grades. On an individual grade where you have a drop-down menu where you can put in a numerical number out of 100, is there a way to change that setting so we can make it so it will coincide with our grading system? For example, if we're doing pass, fail, or that kind of thing, is there a way to change those options?
So I don't actually know. I think that you can either just do ungraded or grade, like give it, but I think that you could do that it's only worth like 2 points or like 1 point or 0. So I think that you could make it a pass fail system by doing like a 0. It's worth, well, it may not let you put in a 0, I guess. Yeah, so it might only take as low as a 1. So you could do 1 or an ungraded, and that might be able to allow you to do it. But that is one thing about Google, is it is somewhat restrictive with certain things like that, is that it's not really going to let you get creative with grading and certain things like that. But that would be my recommendation, is if you're trying to do a pass fail, to do something like ungraded for fails and 1 for passes or something to that effect.
Thank you.
One of the ways you might think of it is not so much as really a grading system. A lot of districts obviously have, a regular grading system that they use to communicate with students. So I think sometimes districts will, if it's Infinite Campus or something like that, sometimes you'll leverage the 2 of those in conjunction with one another. Or if you have a proficiency-based system, you're just not going to be able to put that type of structure right within Google Classroom. So it definitely is one of the drawbacks if you're not using kind of a regular numerical system that some people might be using or be comfortable with.
I have a question. So if I set up assignments that are like worksheets for my students, I know that they then submit them, but where do I see the work? How do I see the work that they submit? I've never done this before, as you can tell.
No worries at all. So that's going to end up showing up in your grading section here. Let me see. I might not have a great example. I wonder if I've got something in here. They won't mind me sharing. Okay, so this will show you, like, you can click on what the actual assignment was, and then it shows you grades, and these are all tutors, so this isn't like schoolwork or anything like that. But this allows you to kind of see where you've graded, what you haven't graded, and if, I'm trying to see if there's anything that was submitted, but oh, that is a assignment that was submitted but hasn't been returned yet. You see how it has that kind of green to it, so you can go and view the submission, and then in here is where you're going to actually put in your grade and return it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I saw in the chat that there were several people who would find it helpful to see how you could set up a discussion. And so I'll go ahead and do that. So there's several ways that this could be done. One of the easiest that I would recommend would be to use the question function. So it's going to allow you to kind of put in the question or the thought, and then I'll put in, please write a brief response. And then if I wanted them to watch a video or read something or check something out before they engage in this is where I would put something like that. I could also create an item for them to complete as like pre-work before they engage in this conversation, but then you'd have a short answer and you'd click ask. Oh, hopefully and then right now it's not in a topic right now, so you'll go in and you can see who has answered them, which right now is nobody. Let me see. I should have done this in the, because then I could show you what it would look like on the student end. Hang on one second, because I feel like that would probably be helpful. I thought I had already done that, but maybe I hadn't. Okay, that's going to take a little bit longer than probably what you want. So here's the question. It came up here. Here's the description that I wrote in, and here's where people can start adding comments. And so we're going to say, I have no idea. That's not a great response because it's not 150 to 200 words, but we're going to put it in there. And so you can kind of see how the discussion can be built in these comments. And I believe that you can set up, it up so that students can either can or cannot respond to each other. And then you can also set it up to where they can edit or not edit their posts. So if you want them to only be able to respond once and not be able to build upon their answer after, then you could have it set up that way. If not, then you can lock that down as well. One of the other things I saw in the chat that I'll just kind of touch on briefly is I'm going to go actually back to our brand new poetry section 1. And we're going to go into classwork and we're going to see here that we have topics set up. Okay. And this was one of the things that I actually used to hate about Google the most because it was like alphabetized. There was no way to just drag and like reorganize how they were. So you may have noticed this one right here has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did that back before you could organize it because it gave me a way to be able to have my topics set up how I wanted them versus being alphabetized, which isn't always helpful. So I already have this getting started topic, which has our welcome to my class. So if I want to create a new topic that doesn't have anything in it, like say you want to get your organizational structure set up first, then you could go and you'll create a topic. And this is poetry. We might want to look at poetry structure. I don't know why I picked poetry, but I did. And so you see it will, by default, it's going to put what you add on top. However, that is not locked in that way. Thank goodness. So now I can take my getting started, and I can just drag it right up to the top there. So you don't have to just, if you forget one and you get 10 in and you're like, oh no, this one should be at the top, you can just go ahead and drag it right up there or drag it down, however it needs to be. And then it shows up here, which I think is super helpful for students to try to like navigate how they're supposed to go through the class.
When you say dragging it up, what are you just holding it, and can you just?
Yep, so I click on this part right here, like where the title is, like above this line. I think if you click down below the line, it doesn't work. So you have to be up in this line. And I click with my mouse or tap if you have a touchpad, and then you hold that and you drag it up. And then once you get that gray little box that shows up right there, you can drop it in. And by drop, I just mean let go of whatever, either the click or the tap.
And the reason you're doing that is because you
It's
want
just
to keep it sequenced in terms of the expectation for each student.
No, it's so that when a student is looking at this structure of the menu, which I could add myself as a student in a second if you want to see the other side of this as well. But this will allow them to see getting started is the first thing on their list of topics. So if poetry structure was at the top of the list, then they might think that they need to start with that. Whereas I want my students to start with the getting started and watching this welcome to my class video before they move into this poetry structure item. So the only reason that you would want to drag or drop one of these is, say I created like I just did, I created the poetry structure second, like I created it after the getting started. So by default, it put it up here. But I don't want my students to come in and see poetry structure first. I want them to see the getting started, the very first thing that they see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's add myself as a student. I have to use my personal email or else it will probably not. I don't think I can be a student and a teacher, but I might be able to. We're not going to try to find out though. And every time I move the little Zoom windows, they always end up blocking whatever button it is that I need to hit. Okay, so I just invited my email to this class. So thankfully, I have it on here. Google, if you have multiple accounts signed in, will always try to default to probably the wrong one. So just keep that in mind. If you look up here, like if you're not seeing what you think you're supposed to see, then look up here if you have more than one Google account, because it might be showing you your personal account versus your school account, or your school account versus your. Okay, so class invitation, poetry 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and click join. And now this is the student view. Oh, no, it's not, you guys. See, I told you I was going to try to do that. Okay, this is student view. And I still have the option to create a class, so I think that's interesting. Probably because my account is not restricted. So this is not what is happening. Did I add it to the wrong class? Does anybody know? Was I not? No, it says invited right there. Okay, we're gonna do this the manual way, because sometimes that's just what you have to do. So we're gonna copy the class code, and I'm gonna go make sure that I'm just in the regular classroom.google.com. Make sure that the right account is showing up. And I am going, this is another way that you could have students access your class depending on how you want to set it up. I'm going to go ahead and join the class. So I have that class code that I copied. I'm going to join. Fingers crossed that it works. All right, and here I am as a student here. Couple of things that will give you the hint that this is the student view and not the teacher view, because I'm sure you're looking at this and you're like, what is the difference? Because there's really not a whole lot. One is that the class code is not here. Students cannot add students to classes. So if you're in student view, you will not have that class code. That's one of the first tip-offs. The other is that there's no grades option here for students. They have the classwork option, and that's where they actually have the option to view their work and like track their progress, but they don't have an actual grades tab. So you can see we have the getting started. Welcome to our course. You won't see the second one, the poetry structure, because there's no content in it yet. It won't show a blank item to students. It will just show, it will only show topics that have content in them, just to prevent confusion for students. So if I wanted to, I could click on this and watch the video because I just got started in this class. I haven't submitted anything, so there's not really anything to view. If my teacher had posted an announcement, it would be here. I could also share something with my class if I want to. And then I can see who the teacher is. I don't believe it'll let me see other students in the class unless I think that's a setting you can toggle on and off. So are there any questions at this point? I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat, but when I'm screen sharing, it's a little bit challenging. So feel free to just shout out your thoughts and questions.
How can you delete a student from a class?
Good question. I actually went through and did that a little bit today so that I had a good, which one? I just added myself to this one. So let's reverse all of that fun stuff that I just did. I have to be in the teacher view. So here we go. We've got my course code and I've got grades. So I'm going into people. I see myself, and then I can go to actions, and it allows me to either email, remove, or mute. Muting them means so they can't really post or be obnoxious, essentially. So if you're having a really disruptive student and you just needed to put a hold on them, but you don't want to remove them from your class, that's an option right there. And so that's how you would just go ahead and click that. And I'm not going to do it because I just added myself. That would be one way to do it. You can also, this is a good way to email specific students because you can do that right from here. If there was more than one student here, then you could toggle whoever you want on and off. And if you want all of them, you would just hit this top button right here.
What about adding parents to a classroom?
Oh, that is a very good question for Google Classroom, just due to the nature that it only has the role of teacher or student. So that's a really good question. I'm kind of stumped on it. I almost would be inclined to have the parent connect via the students, their students' email to see what that specific student is. Because if you add them as a teacher, they're going to see all of the other classwork, which you probably don't want. And then if you add them as a student, they won't be able to see anything. So it'll just be like having them be taking the class. So Google Classroom doesn't really offer the best of options for that. You could, however, pull student work into one of the, where am I? Into, like if you have a class drive folder and you're using this structure, you could create a parent folder and share the folder with the parents and kind of put.
Emma, there should be a way to invite, I don't remember the language they use, if it's parents or guardians or whatever, but there is a way to do that, but I'm not seeing it on yours. I'm wondering if that might be an institutional Google Classroom option.
Oh, that I guess is possible. Does anybody on the call know the answer to that?
Yes, you could invite guardians.
See if I can find something just to share, folks. But
Okay, awesome.
that is definitely a feature that you can access and use, and it works pretty nicely because it just will directly communicate with the parent, and you
should be able to
have
click
to have that email.
you should be able to click on the 3 dots on the side next to the student's name. And in that option, it should be to be able to add parents' email students. See, mine has where I have to add the student, to add the parent.
Right, so that's probably a feature difference between having a Google Apps for Education account versus not. That's definitely good to know. So I didn't catch who asked that question, but if you have a Google Apps for Education, check that spot and see if you have that ability. That might be helpful.
At my school, the school has already incorporated that into Google Classroom. So when you add students, right in the middle is an option to add their parents. So you can just click on add a parent, and the parents can watch what their children are doing for their work.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm gonna drop in the chat, it's a Google Doc that has a few, if I can find the chat, a Google Doc that has a few helpful resources. Oh, there it is. And there's one thing that I really like that you may or may not be aware of that Google has is, let's see if I can find it. Oh, this one. Hopefully you're still seeing my screen. Are you seeing the Professional Development Handbook?
Yes.
Yes, okay, awesome. This is an interactive PDF, so you can kind of look at different training and introduction, the different certifications that they have, which is, you know, may be of interest to you. It may not be. The communities is kind of interesting because you can see what type of Google groups are out there and how you might actually get a little bit of additional support if you're looking for things that you can't find answers to. This is a really great option for that. And I shared the Google Doc. It just has 4 different things in it. This is the first one is that PD handbook. The other one is just the landing page for Google's Google for Education training. They have different courses, and then they also have like a bunch of resources and things of that nature. So all of those are in there. I also added the Bitmoji extension for Chrome because that is a really fun way to integrate some avatar virtual classroom type of more friendly stuff for students. And I think we might end up doing a session on kind of getting to know Bitmoji in the future because it seems to definitely be an up and coming thing for sure. But I just wanted to toss that in here before we get too close to the end so that if anybody has to step out early, they still walk away with these few resources. So trying. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting, but where am I going to be able to access those resources? Are they being sent somewhere?
I just put the link to that Google document in the chat. Did it come through?
Okay, so am I going to be
I'm not seeing it in there, Emma.
Am I going to be able to save those somewhere?
Oh, it looks like I sent it to somebody. Yeah, hang on one second. It looks like I sent it to somebody privately accidentally. Yes, you can certainly, you can just hold on to this link. This document will still exist after today. I'm not planning to really do much with it besides just keep it here as a resource. So okay, hang on, let's see. That should work. If that doesn't work, let me know. Sorry about that. If you don't.
I'm just wondering if these links can be sent to the participants as opposed to being in the chat box.
Sure, like an email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly email, I could just copy and paste this into an email and send it out. I was happy to do that.
That would be more accessible to me, Emma, but I don't know if that would be more accessible to everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. I understand it's kind of tough when resources get buried. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over somebody. I heard somebody.
One thing I did was I clicked on the link and then I bookmarked it on my computer at my desktop. So that made it really simple for me. But thank you for providing those resources.
Yeah, certainly. I find it really helpful to have some like really solid professional learning opportunities for these tools on hand, because there are just such a wealth of features that I feel like you could spend an entire day and you're still not even going to get through all of them. So I think, talking about some of the most commonly used features and, troubleshooting and things of that nature is helpful, but it's also helpful to have like stuff that you can access on your own time, when you're, it's 11 o'clock at night and you're like, I just want to get this done. So you could be like, okay, I'll go check it out and see if it's in here maybe. So are there any other questions that are popping up for people that we haven't addressed yet?
Is there any way to grade something that has been submitted by email and versus submitted through Google Classroom?
So that's an interesting question. So you're having students email their assignments to you instead of uploading them as an attachment, or are they Google Doc files?
I'm an art teacher, so they submit stuff like pictures and stuff through email, and I'm not getting it through Google Classroom, so it's not showing up in Google Classroom.
Right. Okay. So are you interested in having them submit through Google Classroom?
Oh, no, I'd love it, but some of them are not capable of it. They haven't had enough training, so it's.
I see. So, okay, I guess what would be your purpose of putting them in Google Classroom at that point? Just like wondering.
Just to document.
Okay, all right. Well, that would be easy enough to do, although I feel like you could definitely do it in a lot more of a simplistic way. Like you could definitely just use a Google Sheet, like a spreadsheet, and just kind of list the assignments and the grades. I mean, you certainly could use this. I just feel like you might end up kind of putting yourself through more effort than you need to. If you're only using it just to keep a record, then you might want to use like a document or a spreadsheet or something that is a little bit easier to manage. Google Classroom, one of the things about it is just the setup time. Like when you're actually establishing all of your content and stuff, there is a little bit of back end time on putting it all in there. Even when you have it all developed, like I have this digital citizenship course. I have this fully developed in Schoology, and I was working on putting it over. And I mean, it takes a while. It took me a while to even just get a few things put over from there. So I would just be really purposeful with your use of Google Classroom, because you might put yourself through more effort than you really need to.
Emma, I have a question. This probably has nothing to do with this, but when you're watching a recording of one of these lectures, can you see the chat box from other people?
If my recollection is correct, no.
No.
John,
No, you can't.
Okay.
It is kind of one of the unfortunate things, and I know people at the department had looked at some other different tools, because often people are sharing links and resources. So that's why Emma and I have always tried to have like a resource document. So if there are things that are in the chat, we can always add them in there. So anything that we have in the chat, we can add to that resource document that Emma had shared a few minutes ago. So we can email that out to everybody that registered for this session. So anything that we had in the chat, we can certainly add in there.
Okay, thank you.
Our chat does get saved to a text file, so we have the ability to go back retroactively and pull stuff. So even if we're not right on top of it during the meeting, we can always pull relevant information later if we need to.
Yeah.
Do we have the ability to save the chat? I know sometimes you can.
That's a great question. I'm not sure if our meeting is set up.
If you're looking at the chat, there's a like 3 dots down towards the bottom of the chat, and that's where the save option would be, but sometimes that's disabled and sometimes it is.
Yep, no, it says it's on right now.
Yeah, we can.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
what that will save is an actual text document. So like they won't be live links in there, but you can certainly cut and paste them into your browser.
So any other questions on people's minds as we're moving forward into our last 15 minutes?
Can you explain how to integrate the Google Calendar and Google Classroom?
Certainly. So do you mean like how to make assignments show up, or how to have students be able to see the calendar? Or both?
Both.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to make a quiz. And I'm going to title it Really Hard Quiz. And I will need to actually open this Google form if it's a quiz, because it is the quiz feature in Google Classroom is just a form. And then you would edit it here. Really hard quiz. What is the answer? Yes or no? We're gonna call that good. And it automatically saves, so I can just exit out of that and it will fix itself in a minute. And so I'm going to put a due date on here of the 29th. Time, we'll do 11:59, just because that's what already popped up. I'm gonna assign it. And let's see, who do I have in here? I've got, looks like, oh, I added you to that one, John, but it looks like it's a while ago. I should have done that in the other one. You guys, my bad, because I've actually got a person in here. Right? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to redo that real quick, so you'll get another walkthrough. Really hard. And I'm just going to leave that blank because I don't think it's going to matter right now. Put it due on the 29th. We'll add a time just to add some pressure. I'm going to put it in our poetry structure because there's nothing in there yet. And it's going to go out to all students. We're going to say 100 points are possible. Assign it. And then I'm going to go over into my student view and classwork. And then my poetry structure is going to show up here. It's assigned. But let's see what that's going to look like on calendar. Let's see. So I need to make sure I'm in the right email, have the right calendar open. And we're going to look over here at, I have Poetry 1 showing up right here automatically because I was added to the class. So then I'm going months. I'm terrible with that because Outlook scrolls down, but Google Classroom scrolls over. So you can see here I've got the really hard quiz is due May 29th at midnight. So that's how they see it. They can click on it right and it'll take them right into Google Classroom and it'll show them the really hard quiz that they need to take. Any questions about that process?
And Emma, just quickly, do you want to show, I shared with you a Flipgrid link, so you don't have to create a Flipgrid right now, but in the chat, I shared with you a link, and if you just want to show about how you would take that link and share that with students, so it's actually like sending them out.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's actually a great.
We will be offering kind of a Flipgrid help session next week. So if you're using Flipgrid, so that might be something that we can kind of cover the Flipgrid portion of this, but.
Actually, I think it's on Thursday.
It is on Thursday.
It is on Thursday.
Yup. Okay, so I'm going to copy this link. This is the Flipgrid that he's referring to. So we're going to take the link for that and we're going to go back to, I have a lot of tabs open. And we're going to create, I would do material on this. And well, I would do material if you're going to grade separately, but do an assignment if you're going to use Google Classroom to grade. Because in this moment, you're going to be popping them out of their Google Classroom and bringing them to Flipgrid. So if your method for grading the assignment is going to be done within Google, then I would create it as an assignment. But if you're going to use a different grading system, like say you have a different SIS and it's not integrated, so you have to take your Google Classroom grades and put them into your SIS, then I would say you can just go ahead and use it as material because you won't be expecting a grade in Google Classroom. But we're going to say that we want this graded in Google Classroom, and we're going to say, I'm not super creative, so we're just going to go with Flipgrid assignment. And we're going to add a link and paste, and that'll post a Flipgrid video and respond to 2 classmates. I don't know. And we'll put a due date so it'll show up on their calendar. They got a lot of stuff due on the 29th at midnight. Probably ought to get to step in. We're going to put this under, I gotta move the Zoom thing again. Put this under poetry structure, and we're going to assign it. And so then when I go into my student view, I'm going to hit the refresh button just so that stuff is accurate to right now. And I go into poetry structure, and it says post a Flipgrid video and respond to 2 classmates. And I can click on this and it's going to pop me out. It opens this in a new window, so your students will still have their classroom open in a separate tab. They'll just have a new window pop up with the Flipgrid assignment that they could then engage in. Any questions about that? And that does not limit it to Flipgrid. That is any external tool that you might be using, whether it's Padlet, whether you want to send them to a website. We got a really awesome example the other day of a game of Flying Gonzo being used for math. And so there's this internet game that they're linking students to kind of, do the trajectory type of math. That's, you shoot them out of a cannon. So, if you're having your students work with things like that, you can link them out, but have it also be, in your assignments here where you can give them a grade on something that they did on a separate tool.
Do they have to have everything, an account already set up in Flipgrid?
John, I'm not as
yes, they don't have to, but I would say if you're using Google Classroom, Flipgrid, the two integrate really nicely with one another. So when they're getting onto their account, they can actually use their Google account to log in. Most people I know that would use both of them. That's kind of the easiest way to get connected with Flipgrid. So that would be my suggestion, but you don't have to do it that way.
And then Padlet, I think it's a similar thing. Like you can use email, but you don't have to. You can have just a code that they can link to the Padlet with. So there's all sorts of tools where you can kind of manage access and what you want students to have to go through, whether you want them to have to download an app and use it regularly or just one time, or all sorts of things you can do. We've got about 4 minutes left. Does anybody else have a question or a thought that they want to toss out before we start wrapping things up?
So basically, what is Flipgrid offering?
So Flipgrid, which if you'd like to learn more, you can feel free to tune in on Thursday.
Yes.
But I'll give you a brief, just quick. It's basically a platform where students can post videos. It's quick videos. I think, what is it, 5-minute limit, John? It's quick videos.
I think you can kind of set the parameters. I think 5's the max that you can do. But
yeah.
You can set how long you want students to do that.
Right, which can add to the challenge. Like you could have them respond to a prompt in 30 seconds, and then they have to focus on being succinct instead of, being wordy. And then basically it's kind of like a discussion platform in some ways, but the discussion is hosted via video. So a student will post a video of them doing or responding or whatever, and then students can post comments, but the comments are video comments. And so it kind of gives that interactive, it feels almost synchronous because you have students kind of like you can click and watch through, and it's almost like they're having a back and forth, but it doesn't have to be done at the same time. So it's an asynchronous thing, but it can have that synchronous feeling, which can be super helpful in a virtual environment.
Nice.
So I did put in the chat, and I sent Emma the link, so maybe can pull that up. But the link for people to put in to enter your contact information so you can get your certificate. Oh, it didn't jump. It didn't jump right. I was hoping it'd jump right to the page. It is slide 21.
Okay, awesome. 21.
So it's bit.ly/MDOE DLPD, and that is case sensitive.
So guys, can you send these links to the participants?
Yeah,
we can certainly do that.
we're gonna send we're gonna send a email out to folks, and it's gonna have the link to that document that we were just talking about earlier. So it should have, if there were links in the chat that we had referenced and things like that. So
yeah, we can make sure that this link is in there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so some people will want to like hop right on that. So there is the certification system that we have. There is kind of a time, not a time, there's a number of so many that I can send out per day. So if you, if you fill this out today, I'll start sending them out, but don't be distressed if you don't receive it today, or maybe even tomorrow, because I think it's like 75 or 100, something like that is the daily limit. So I'd say just kind of keep watching your email, and if you don't get something from us by the end of the week, you can email me. I'm the one that's running the certificate portion of this. So, and I have I'll have all of these saved. So if for some reason in the future you lose track of the email or whatever, you can always reach out to me, and hopefully I'll be able to find it.
Don't eat right now. I'm going to make you some lunch. Just a minute. I'm
Hey,
almost.
John,
Yep.
are you also counting your classes that we've already been to in the past? Are they all numbered that we can get the numbers for?
So the like the office hours that we've done, we hadn't been doing certificates. I know some of the content specialists had been, but because they've been kind of more open conversations. But for us, we're going to be really ramping up our PD over the summer. We're actually going to be meeting with the commissioner shortly and talking about some plans. So if you're folks that are hungry, looking for more professional development opportunities over the summer, I think the department is going to have you covered.
Or do we submit a request after each meeting?
Yeah,
or
so
wait
after each session at the end, I'll have kind of a link in there that you can follow, and then you're actually just selecting which session is that you're attending, and you'll be getting that emailed to you hopefully within the next couple days. Yeah, so this link will take you to the help sessions that we're doing this week. So we're kind of going on the honor system. So just as you've completed them, go in and you can fill that out. So you're going to have to do it for each one. You can't select the individual just because that's how the certification system works. So we're going to be offering, I think, a little bit more on Google Classroom later in the week. Part of that, I think we can talk about, obviously there's an interest in it, integrating between the two. So if people are interested, because I've had those questions about tying together Seesaw and Classroom or tying together Flipgrid and Google Classroom, so we can cover those things. So if you're interested about those, feel free to tune in on Thursday.
Is this afternoon's a separate topic?
This afternoon, we're going to be going over Seesaw.
Okay.
All right, we are just after 12, so I think we'll let folks go, and certainly feel free to tune in. If you have any questions or comments, you can certainly send them our way, and feel free to reach out if you don't receive your certificate by the end of the week. It might be, just maybe a little mistake in there. Something gets skipped over in the system, but we'll make sure you get your contact hours. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.